Welcome back to Ant's Boxing Channel. Let's talk on how Jaime Munguia scored a TKO in the 9th round against John Ryder, how he looked doing it, who are the next potential opponents for Jaime Munguia, and how he matches up against them. Jaime Munguia scored his TKO with the 1-2. It was that simple, the right hand. He would throw it downstairs, he would throw it upstairs. He kept throwing a jab, 1 or 2 or 3 jabs to then throw the straight hand downstairs, 1, 2 or 3 jabs to then throw the straight hand upstairs. It was literally his bread and butter the whole entire fight. And I already knew going into the fight that was going to be a big deal because I saw that was how Canelo was able to drop Ryder. And Jaime Munguia is taller than Canelo, with a longer reach than Canelo, and also punches in more volume than Canelo does. So I already knew that style was really going to give John Ryder a lot of trouble. John Ryder tried to avoid it a couple times, and he was successful avoiding it a couple times, but Jaime Munguia was very persistent. He ain't stopped doing it, and eventually John Ryder just couldn't take it anymore, and the fight was over. Now, how did Jaime Munguia look doing this? He looked pretty good. He looked pretty good. His size played into the equation, so it was a little easy for him to do that. Will he be able to do that against a bigger fighter? Somebody that is faster, somebody with better counterpunching ability, more power in that counterpunch? I don't think so. But overall, he got the job done, and he looked pretty good doing it. And he did something that Canelo Alvarez couldn't do, which was stop John Ryder. One thing I had a problem with when it came to Munguia's performance was keeping his head on the line. There was a lot of times where he just comes in and he keeps his head on the line, he don't take it off, and he's just there to get hit. Like I said, if you are counterpunching, you got some good power on you, honestly, you could really hurt that kid. But on the flip side, Jaime Munguia got a good chin. I saw him take a lot of big shots from John Ryder. A lot of left hands, a lot of right hand hooks, like right on the button, and Jaime Munguia wasn't going nowhere. The kid got a chin on him, and that's proven. Unfortunately, John Ryder wasn't able to really give Jaime Munguia a lot of trouble, so we didn't really get to see Jaime Munguia's footwork. We didn't get to see Jaime Munguia's IQ, adjustment. We didn't see none of that. We actually saw Jaime Munguia look kind of one-dimensional, but it's hard to say, is he really one-dimensional? Or was he just doing what he knew was going to win him the fight? Was that part of the game plan because he just didn't stop doing it? I don't know. Maybe in the next fight, we'll see what he does, and then we can get a better judgment on that. Now, as for the next potential opponents for Jaime Munguia, Jaime Munguia is coming off of beating a guy that Canelo beat, but Canelo couldn't stop, and Jaime Munguia stopped him. So that definitely raises his stock, because now it's going to be the comparisons. Oh, Canelo couldn't stop him, Jaime Munguia did. So could he get a potential fight with Canelo Alvarez? It's possible. It's possible. I don't count it out. It gets tricky because, you know, Canelo has said he don't want to fight Mexican fighters. You know, everybody wants to see Canelo versus Benavidez. But ultimately, it's really just up to Canelo and whatever he chooses to do. He's the ace, he fights whoever. But that fight makes sense now because he did something Canelo couldn't do. Canelo's coming off of beating John Ryder and beating Jermell Charlo. But people weren't really too impressed by that because Jermell Charlo was coming up 2 divisions. And how much does that really prove to you about Canelo? Now, Jaime Munguia can also get a fight with Edgar Berlanga because Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga both fight for Matchroom on DAZN. So that's an easy in-house fight to make. The question would just be, does Edgar Berlanga want that? I know Jaime Munguia would take it, and you know it makes sense because the Puerto Rican-Mexican rivalry, those fights are always magnificent. Jaime Munguia could get a fight with Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo's coming back from his long layoff, fought Jose Benavidez, got the ring rust shaken off. He looked good in the fight. He couldn't stop the little Benavidez, but he still looked really good in the fight, and for the most part, it was one-sided. And then you got the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. He could possibly get a fight with David Benavidez because David Benavidez is the boogeyman. Shout out to Demetrius Andre because he went up there and got busy, but David Benavidez is still the Mexican monster. But now you got a little baby Mexican monster in Jaime Munguia who might want to come up and try to challenge him. And that fight will be very makeable because David Benavidez has been hunting down Canelo. Canelo fought Ryder, couldn't stop Ryder. Jaime Munguia fought Ryder, and he stopped Ryder. So if David Benavidez could stop Jaime Munguia, or just beat Jaime Munguia, period, it's just another common opponent between David Benavidez and Canelo, builds the fight even further. Now, how does Jaime Munguia actually match up against all these guys? Let's start off with Edgar Berlanga. I think that fight will be a 50-50 fight. Both those guys got power. Both those guys are come-forward fighters. I think Berlanga would have him on the boxing technical ability, but I think that Munguia would have him on the aggression and the pressure. Nevertheless, somebody's getting knocked out in that fight. I do not see it going 12 rounds. Now, you guys are probably going to think I'm crazy for this, but I think that Jaime Munguia against Canelo Alvarez is truly a 50-50 fight as well. Why do I believe that? Because Canelo Alvarez doesn't like to be put on the back foot. Jaime Munguia is going to come with a lot of pressure, punching in bunches, combinations. Now, Canelo can counter Jaime Munguia, especially from the mid-range. Canelo could counter him and make him pay. But Jaime Munguia can also hurt Canelo. Jaime Munguia might be able to put pressure on Canelo to where Canelo isn't comfortable letting his shots off. And something to take into consideration is that both guys got chins. Both guys got power. Canelo's bread and butter in that fight will be his slippery, hard to read counter punches, while Munguia's bread and butter in that fight will be his 1-2s and his voluminous punch output. Next we got David Benavidez. That will be a really good fight too. You got two guys, once again, that come forward, got a lot of power, two big dudes, and there's something very interesting about this fight. We haven't really seen David Benavidez fight much off the back foot because he's normally the aggressor, putting people on their back foot. Now we've seen Jaime Munguia move backwards and fighting off the back foot a little bit. Not that good at it, but he'll defend himself and do a little something out of that position. But Jaime Munguia has the potential and the capabilities to put David Benavidez on his back foot. And if he does so, what is that going to bring out of David Benavidez? That's a question that we would just love to have the answer to. And Jaime Munguia is the one that can force David Benavidez to answer that question. Of course, you also got David Morrell out there that could put Benavidez on his back foot. You also got Canelo, but for the sake of this video, I'm just talking about Jaime Munguia. Now, when it comes to who I think would win that fight, I favor David Benavidez. Just because I feel David Benavidez is a more sophisticated fighter. He's just overall more polished than Jaime Munguia. David Benavidez showed us against Demetrius Andrade that David Benavidez actually has defense. He actually has timing. He knows how to punch in between your punches and actually counter punch a little bit. He's very tricky. He's not just a come forward fighter with no IQ. Jaime Munguia, on the other hand, he's not as tricky. He's a little more predictable and he's kind of basic. He's kind of repetitive. I think David Benavidez will win that fight, but I do feel that Jaime Munguia can put David Benavidez in an uncomfortable position. And I would just love to see what David Benavidez does on that back foot. And what would he do when he has to deal with that pressure that he's used to dishing out. And Jaime Munguia got power and he punches and bunches too. The dude, you can't count him out against anybody in that division. And last but not least, I saved this kryptonite for last, Jermall Charlo. Why do I think Jermall Charlo was his kryptonite? Because out of Edgar Berlanga, Canelo Alvarez, and David Benavidez, I think Jermall Charlo's the best counterpuncher off the back foot and even just standing in the pocket. I think he's the best counterpuncher out of those guys. With the exception of Canelo at the mid-range. He's a better counterpuncher mid-range than Jermall Charlo is. However, stylistically, the way they match up, Munguia being taller with longer arms, Jermall Charlo have also being tall with them longer arms. He's going to be able to let off better counterpunches from the mid-range than Canelo Alvarez is. And on top of that, Jermall Charlo can fight going backwards. He's not the best at it, but he could do it and pretty effectively. Jaime Munguia don't take his head off that line. Jaime Munguia is going to come in repetitively with the same thing, trying to get you. And I think Jermall Charlo would really just crack him and land a good one. And I think he'll hurt him. I think he will be the worst match for Jaime Munguia. All those guys could beat Jaime Munguia, but the difference is that I think Jermall Charlo would beat him and make it look the easiest than any of those other guys. It's just styles make fights. It's just boxing. Now, I also want to take some time to touch on the type of fighter that I feel Jaime Munguia is. I think Jaime Munguia is the type of fighter that the people would just love. Because Jaime Munguia is flawed, but he's dangerous. So he could give anybody trouble, but at the same time, he's beatable and fairly easy to figure out. But just because you could figure him out doesn't mean you could beat him. Because Jaime Munguia puts a lot of pressure. Jaime Munguia uses the jab a lot. And Jaime Munguia got some pretty good power of his own. He got some awkward movement. He got a good chin. We've seen him take a lot of shots. And the dude don't give up. He's resilient and persistent. John Ryder caught him with so many shots and he just kept coming forward. Derevyanchenko caught him with so many shots, even hurt him, and he just kept coming forward. The kid don't stop. It's like if he gets hurt, he's just hurt me more. Like, he just keep coming. Pause. But yeah, I do feel that Jaime Munguia is a very entertaining fighter, and I'm curious to see when he gets on that big stage how he performs, because if Jaime Munguia can perform on a high level on that big stage against those top names, he might lose a couple times, but he might be a throwback fighter in a sense of Oscar de la Hoya or Tito Trinidad. Not saying he's skillfully on those guys' level. I'm just talking about the product that he could produce when he's in a fight. It'll be entertaining and it'll be competitive, regardless of who he's fighting. As always, guys, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you that have watched this video to this point. And if you have, I ask that you hit that subscribe button so you can enjoy more content. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, because it will help me tremendously. And if you disagree with what I said or feel like I'm missing something, leave a comment so we could talk about it, because you might broaden my knowledge and help me provide y'all with better content. But that's it, fans. Boxing Channel, I'm out.
Coño, sube eso hasta arriba, vamos, dale duro. Yo salgo a la calle buscando mi gente, cuando de repente todos los delincuentes que queden en mi vida, buena mala suerte que son mi familia, no importa la sangre. Jesús hizo agua en vida.